Hey, what do you usually wear when it's 14 degrees outside? My guess is a big puffy parka on top of lots of layers. Or if it's your day off, you'll be staying in your PJs because, no thanks. Me, I just don't go outside. I mean, what am I, nuts? Don't answer that. So, just imagine leaving your house when it's minus 63 degrees Fahrenheit. It might be hard to fathom, but there are whole towns that see that kind of weather on a regular basis. I know what you're thinking. It's gotta be somewhere in Russia, right? And you'd be correct. Well, either that or Antarctica. But I'm not talking about towns of penguins here. And while most people think that Russia is cold and snowy all year round, there's actually plenty of sun and warmth in many of this huge country's regions. But this stereotype had to come from somewhere, right? Well, yes, and that somewhere is Siberia. Siberia is a huge swath of land with all kinds of different climatic zones. And no, it's not uninhabited. There are lots of cities, towns, and villages throughout its vast territory. Summer in Siberia is usually quite warm, albeit short, but the winters there are a whole nother story. Temperatures can drop to unbelievable lows, and people have to survive the extreme cold. Of course, most of us can't even begin to imagine how they do it. But lucky for us, Olyas Petrovich, a guy from a village called Nyurba in northeastern Siberia, recently decided to post a video on YouTube about what life in the coldest part of the coldest country in the world actually is. Now, to tell you the truth, I was absolutely stunned by what he showed. More on that later, but first, I want you to understand just how cold this part of Russia is. Yakutia, the capital of Petrovich's region, is famous for its diamond deposits and frozen mammoths. No, for real, in the summer of 2018, you might have heard about extremely well-preserved mammoth remains being found in the permafrost. I mean, that should give you a hint about how cold this place not only gets, but remains for a long time. If a mammoth has managed to stay frozen and almost untouched by 50,000 years of decay, that means the soil was constantly very, very cold. Now, can you imagine people living somewhere around there? Neither can I, but they do nevertheless. Like I said, summer in Yakutia is pretty nice. Winter, though, is really harsh. In Nyurba, temperatures can drop off to minus 63 degrees Fahrenheit or even lower, which basically stops all activities. Schools close, people rarely go outside, and cars don't even start. Would you? You know how you can see your breath a little when it's chilly? Well, here, you can blow it out like a stream of smoke. Your breath simply freezes right there in the air, almost dropping to the ground like an icicle. Visitors to Nyurba probably won't have a very good time if they decide to go there in winter. Locals have long since learned how to protect and warm their cars so that they at least run. People from other places, however, often have no clue just how severe the temperatures are, so they don't protect their vehicles. They just drive in, park the car somewhere as you do, and when they try to start it again, it simply refuses. You see, a car has lots of parts that aren't very resistant to cold, especially the ones made of rubber. To get what I'm talking about, just try putting a rubber band in the freezer for a couple hours. When you take it out, you'll see it's become rigid and fragile. Now imagine what happens to cars when they get to Nyurba, which is easily colder than any household freezer. Basically, every belt inside your vehicle will do what that rubber band did as soon as you stop the engine. It's not a rare case when cars and even trucks that stopped there overnight got frozen to the core and covered with a thick layer of ice in the morning. Gives a whole new meaning to ice truckers, doesn't it? Just like rubber and metal, everything else gets frozen within seconds as well. You need to dress really warm if you're about to go out in the frost. Just take a look at what happens to a simple bed sheet when you take it out. It almost gets petrified by the frost, behaving more like a sheet of metal than one of linen. If your clothes aren't properly insulated, the same will happen to them. But hey, look on the bright side. If you're wearing such a rigid outfit, you can pretend you're a medieval knight. Just don't shatter your armor when you bend your arms or legs. I don't think the king would take that very lightly. Dilly dilly. If cars don't work in such freezing temperatures, then forget about electric appliances. Almost nothing is manufactured for such conditions, and there are few materials that can withstand this extreme cold without breaking at some point. This is especially true for home appliances that are powered from an outlet. Apart from shutting themselves down, their power cords get rigid too, just like that rubber I mentioned earlier. You can still plug the cord in, of course. You'll just have to make sure the appliance and the outlet are in a straight line with each other. Otherwise, if you try to bend the cord, it'll break. But hey, stay on the bright side. At least you don't even need a fridge when it's so cold outside. Well, that is, if you don't mind your food being turned into ice. What else is there to say when you can use a banana or an apple as a hammer to beat down nails? I guess you could still use a fridge for yourself if you're tired of the constant cold and would like to, chill a little bit. If you head from Petrovich's village and drive further northeast for about 32 hours nonstop, first of all, you'd still be in the Sakha Republic. which tells you a thing or two about the mere size of Russia. But you'd also wind up in the village of Oymyakon, where the people are extraordinarily resilient as well. This town boasts the record temperature of minus 89.9 degrees and is considered the northern pole of cold. That's because it doesn't get any cooler anywhere on Earth except Antarctica. Now, you might be puzzled by how people even survive such crazy temperatures, and I'm in the same boat with you. Yet they seem pretty much content with what they have. Of course, nobody can be 100% prepared to beat the weather, and even the sturdiest of structures sometimes give in to the cold. But people know how to deal with the rough climate of their homeland. They wear furs and insulated clothes when they go outside. For their homes, they install double or even triple insulation on every wall, floor, and ceiling to keep out the cold. Having only one door and no separate entry is downright dangerous though. When you open the first door, you let in freezing air from outside, covering the whole room with frost almost instantly. But with an entry room, it takes all the abuse, and the interior of your house stays warm and cozy. If there's none, however, then it's your living space that gets that whirl of frost and cold. No thanks. But it's not just about staying warm in these temperatures. You also need to feed yourself somehow. Fortunately, there are plenty of wild animals roaming the surrounding woods, and the waters of Siberia are full of fish. Villagers often go hunting or fishing to keep their bellies full. That doesn't mean they completely lack civilization, though. Those who have cars commute to larger cities to buy building and insulation materials, food, medicine, and other necessities. Those who don't own a vehicle may use public transport, or ask their neighbors and friends for help if they need something. I guess such harsh living conditions really bring communities together for support, which I think is actually pretty sweet. Still, I won't be moving there anytime soon. Maybe Miami. So, Brightsiders, how cold does it get where you live? Let us all know down in the comments. If you learned something new or interesting in this video, then give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button to always stay on the bright side of life.